The ABC studio grew quiet as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett calmly adjusted her microphone. Her composed demeanor stood in sharp contrast to the visible unease of Billy Joel. For the past 10 minutes, the legendary singer and songwriter had been sharply criticizing congressional involvement in music industry practices, particularly taking aim at Crockett's proposed reforms on royalty payments. With all due respect, Congresswoman Joel had stated moments earlier, politicians, with no experience in artistic creation, shouldn't be deciding how musicians get paid. The atmosphere in the room was tense as Crockett met Joel's gaze. Her tone was steady but firm. "Mr. Joel, before we continue our discussion on compensation ethics, I'd like to revisit your repeated comments about family values in the music industry." She held up a document stamped with a court seal. "This is your sworn testimony from your 2009 divorce case," she said, "where you made statements completely opposite to what you're advocating today." Cameras caught Joel's face shifting from confidence to visible disbelief. Crockett pressed on. "You testified that musicians should be held to the same ethical standards as other professionals. And you explicitly supported the regulations you're now criticizing." Joel's face reddened as he grasped the edge of the table. The audience reacted with quiet surprise. What began as a standard debate on music industry regulation had turned into a pivotal moment, one that reframed the national discussion on celebrity influence and political consistency. Within minutes, the exchange was viral across social media. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more moments where preparation meets public influence. Long before this confrontation, Billy Joel and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had followed vastly different paths in American public life. Joel, now 74, had built a legendary career in music over 5 decades. With numerous Grammy Awards, a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and over 150 million records sold globally, he was widely seen as one of the most influential songwriters in modern history. Songs like Piano Man, Uptown Girl, and We Didn't Start the Fire had become cultural touchstones. In recent years. Joel had increasingly spoken out on music industry matters, industrially on streaming royalties, copyright enforcement, and artist protections. Through his foundation, he supported music education programs and advocated for traditional industry models that he credited for his own success. "The music business gave me everything," Joel often said in interviews. "I believe in safeguarding the structures that allow musicians to thrive." His influence had made him a valued voice on policy matters. With lawmakers from both sides seeking his support on arts legislation. However, Joel's personal and professional history often conflicted with the positions he now defended. His life included several marriages, legal disputes, and business issues, details largely overlooked in media coverage that focused on his celebrity and achievements. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, 43, brought a different kind of experience to the table. After earning her law degree from the University of Houston, she built a career as a civil rights attorney before entering politics. Elected to Congress in 2022, she served on the House Judiciary Committee, including its subcommittee on courts, intellectual property, and the Internet. What many viewers didn't know was that before attending law school, Crockett had worked at a performing rights organization, giving her first-hand experience with music licensing and royalties. During her legal studies, she focused on entertainment law and wrote her thesis on digital rights management. This background gave her a deeper technical understanding of the industry than many of her peers. "Sound policy requires insight into both people and systems," Crockett said, when introducing her music modernization legislation. "We need rules that protect artists while adapting to technology's impact." The conflict with Joel began when Crockett introduced a bill to update royalty distribution methods, aimed at supporting independent artists and enforcing transparency among top-tier musicians and music executives. Joel and other high-profile artists criticized the legislation as unwelcome interference, The ABC special, American Creators, Rights and Responsibilities, was created to highlight differing views from both the creative and policy communities. Producers invited Joel specifically because of his vocal opposition to Crockett's proposals. But what they didn't anticipate was how thoroughly the Congresswoman had prepared. While most participants came armed with general policy arguments, Crockett and her team had extensively researched Joel's history, including interviews, legal testimonies, and business records. They uncovered several instances where his current positions directly conflicted with earlier statements, especially those made under oath. Most notably, they found court documents from Joel's 2009 divorce in which he spoke at length about ethics in the music industry and the need for regulation, testimony that stood in stark contrast to his current views. Although publicly available, these documents had never been linked to his advocacy efforts. When the program aired, viewers expected a respectful exchange between a beloved icon and a lesser-known lawmaker. What they saw instead was a striking moment of accountability, where deep preparation challenged the assumption that celebrity viewpoints go unquestioned in serious policy debate. Under the studio lights, Billy Joel and Congresswoman Crockett sat across from each other at a sleek table. Moderator Diane Sawyer introduced the topic with practiced neutrality. Our focus tonight is proposed legislation that would significantly change how royalties are distributed and how the industry operates, she said. Mr. Joel, you've been outspoken against these reforms. Can you explain your concerns? Joel leaned in with confidence. The music industry is a unique creative system that's evolved over time. These new regulations reflect a lack of understanding about how music is made and how this business runs. Lawmakers with little experience in creative work shouldn't be making rules that interfere with that process. Turning to Crockett, Sawyer asked, Congresswoman, as the bill's sponsor, how do you respond to these objections? I respect Mr. Joel's perspective and appreciate his contribution to American music, Crockett began. But the current system heavily favors established artists and makes it difficult for newer voices to break through. Our bill updates outdated royalty structures to match how people listen to music today. Joel gave a small shake of his head. With all due respect, Congresswoman, these changes introduce unnecessary bureaucracy and interfere with agreements that let artists focus on their work instead of paperwork. Crockett responded. The reporting requirement only applies to collections exceeding $10 million a year. Do you believe that creates a hardship for most working musicians? That's not the point, Joel countered, now visibly frustrated. Today, it's $10 million. Tomorrow, it might drop to $1 million or less. Once regulation starts, it rarely stops. The bigger question is, should government be setting terms for a creative community at all? Crockett nodded slightly. That's a fair question. Would you say you've always opposed government regulation in the arts? Absolutely, Joel said firmly. Artists should have the freedom to create and manage their business without interference. Crockett opened a folder on the desk. That's interesting. In 2009, you testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee in support of the Performance Rights Act. You argued that government oversight was essential to ensure fair pay for all musicians and warned that without it, large companies would exploit those with less power. That position seems to differ from what you're saying now. Joel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That was a different situation. That bill addressed a specific issue with radio royalties. The imbalance you've referenced largely favored well-known artists like yourself, Crockett noted. You supported regulation when it served your interests, but now oppose it when it may benefit emerging musicians at a possible cost to established ones. Would that be a fair observation? That's an oversimplification, Joel replied, his tone turning defensive. Each bill has its own impact. My concern has always been preserving the creative process. I understand, Crockett acknowledged. Let's move to the issue of family values from your earlier testimony. You said your opposition to transparency requirements comes partly from wanting to keep family matters private. You argued that disclosing financial arrangements could harm the families of artists. Is that accurate? Yes, Joel confirmed. Artists' families deserve protection from unnecessary public exposure. I agree that family privacy is important, Crockett said, nodding. That's why I was surprised to find your sworn statement from your 2009 divorce, where you argued the exact opposite. She pulled out a document. When your ex-wife's attorney raised concerns about financial privacy, you responded I'm quoting directly that public figures who benefit from public recognition should expect financial transparency. You went on to say that musicians should be held to the same disclosure standards as corporate executives, and that using family privacy as a shield was, in your words, ethically indefensible. A quiet stir passed through the audience. As Joel's expression stiffened, divorce proceedings can be contentious, he said. What's said in that context doesn't necessarily reflect broader policy views. That's certainly understandable, Crockett replied. People's views can change. What's notable is that you've framed your current position on family privacy as a long-standing belief rather than something that's evolved. In fact, in multiple cases, you've taken opposite positions depending on how it affected your personal or professional interests. She turned to another file. In 2015, while supporting the Songwriter Equity Act, you argued that transparency requirements help protect the integrity of the industry. Today, you claim those same transparency provisions would harm it. Joel's composure began to slip. Congresswoman, you're selectively quoting from different situations to create apparent contradictions. These issues are complicated. They can't be reduced to a few statements. I agree context matters, Crockett replied. That's why I've reviewed full transcripts of your testimonies, public interviews, and advocacy work over the last 15 years. The broader context doesn't resolve the contradictions. If anything, it underscores a pattern. Your public positions tend to shift based on how the proposed policies might affect your financial standing. The atmosphere in the studio grew heavier. The audience wasn't witnessing a personal attack, but a rare instance of methodical public accountability. Crockett wasn't targeting Joel. As an individual, Shay was simply asking him to explain the inconsistencies in his own record. Mr. Joel, she continued, during your 2009 testimony, you addressed artists' compensation ethics. You stated that successful artists have a duty to make sure the system works, not just for them, but for all musicians. Today, you're opposing reforms designed to support less established artists. How do you reconcile that? Then came the turning point. Joel, visibly agitated, raised his voice for the first time. This is exactly what's wrong with politics, he said sharply. Digging through divorce proceedings from 15 years ago, instead of debating the real policy issues. This feels personal. It doesn't move the conversation forward. His outburst lingered in the studio. Audience members shifted in their seats. Crockett, however, stayed calm. Mr. Joel, she responded evenly. I haven't made any personal remarks. I've only quoted your own public and sworn statements that directly conflict with your current position. This isn't about your personal life. It's about consistency in public advocacy. She addressed the room. This isn't just about Mr. Joel. It's part of a broader pattern. Celebrity voices are rarely held to the same standard of consistency as others who influence public policy. When individuals speak before Congress, the public deserves to know whether those statements reflect enduring principles or momentary interests. Joel attempted to regain his footing. My views have changed with the industry, he said. That's not inconsistency, it's adaptation. Adapting views is perfectly legitimate, Crockett agreed. But your testimony today framed your beliefs on artistic freedom and government oversight as if they were timeless truths. You criticized members of Congress, myself included. for supposedly lacking understanding of those principles that your earlier statements suggest you haven't always held. She gathered her notes. I believe our conversation around music regulation could be far more productive if we focused on current data, how different policies impact different stakeholders instead of leaning on appeals to past experience or vague ideas of artistic autonomy that may not be consistently applied. Asterisk, as the segment wrapped up, the dynamic had completely shifted. What had started as a discussion framed around a legendary musician explaining industry norms to a junior politician had become a thoughtful, evidence-driven inquiry into consistency and accountability in public testimony. Asterisk, as the cameras prepared to cut away. Joel tried one last time to refocus the narrative. Asterisk, I've spent my life making music, he said. All I care about is preserving the creative process for future generations. Asterisk, I believe you, Crockett replied sincerely. And I hope you can believe that, even though I see this differently. My goal is the same, to create a system where creativity is protected, both for artists like you, and for those who haven't yet made their mark. Asterisk, rather than delivering a gotcha moment, the exchange left viewers with something more valuable. A model of how respectful, fact-based questioning can elevate a public policy discussion even when it involves someone as famous as Billy Joel. Asterisk, the impact of the exchange stretched far beyond the ABC studio. In hours, clips were trending across platforms, drawing millions of views and generating intense public debate. Asterisk, major media outlets captured the story's surprising weight. The Washington Post ran the headline, Joel confronted with his own words in music policy clash. NPR released a segment titled, When Advocacy Meets the Past, Joel and Crockett Face Off. Billboard led with Piano Man Meets Policy Paradox. Joel's testimony under scrutiny. Asterisk, media experts noted what made the moment resonate wasn't star power, but substance. Asterisk, this wasn't entertainment, it was accountability, said media critic Carlos Ramirez. Crockett didn't make it personal. She just presented the facts and asked for clarity, and that made the difference. Asterisk, the episode sparked wider reflection on celebrity influence in politics. Newsrooms began re-examining past testimony from other well-known advocates, uncovering inconsistencies that had long gone unnoticed. Asterisk, on Capitol Hill, committees updated their procedures to include more rigorous reviews of witnesses' past statements. Crockett's approach had clearly set a new benchmark. Asterisk, for Joel, the aftermath was mixed. Some fans viewed Crockett's approach as unfair, but many others appreciated her direct, yet respectful questioning. His planned appearance at a congressional roundtable on copyright reform was quietly postponed. Still, his concerts continued to draw crowds. Asterisk, 2 weeks later, during a performance at Madison Square Garden, Joel finally addressed the controversy. Asterisk, I've spent 50 years writing songs about the contradictions in human nature, he told the audience. Asterisk, I shouldn't have been surprised to learn I'm more complicated than I thought. Joel told the crowd. Asterisk, sometimes our values shift hand. That's okay, as long as we're honest about it. Asterisk, this acknowledgement of his changing views, delivered with his trademark humility, helped reframe him as a thoughtful, reflective artist, rather than a defensive celebrity. Asterisk, for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the aftermath brought a noticeable boost in visibility and credibility. Her Music Modernization Reform Act quickly gained several new sponsors. Industry publications that had previously brushed off her proposals began engaging with the actual policy substance rather than just quoting celebrity detractors. Asterisk, Crockett also received a growing number of invitations to speak at music industry forums and panels, with organizers specifically citing her depth of knowledge and understanding of the complex systems behind licensing and royalties. Asterisk, what Representative Crockett displayed wasn't just solid preparation, noted music industry attorney Jennifer Lawrence. It was a clear commitment to prioritizing substance over star power, a model for how these discussions should take place. Crockett didn't reject Joel's experience or diminish his legacy. She simply asked him to apply that experience consistently. Asterisk, perhaps even more consequentially. The exchange influenced how media producers approached coverage of entertainment-related legislation. Several networks began placing greater emphasis on researching public advocates' past positions rather than presenting their current views as self-evident. Multiple outlets revised their interview preparation guidelines, encouraging hosts to identify possible inconsistencies in public advocacy and frame them respectfully. Asterisk. The public response also stood out for its seriousness. Comment sections and social media discussions reflected unusual thoughtfulness. Across ideological lines, many praised the segment not for its confrontation, but for its depth and relevance. Asterisk. What resonated with viewers, said Communications Professor Sarah Jenkins, wasn't seeing a politician defeat a celebrity. It was seeing someone hold a well-known figure accountable using facts and preparation. That sends a message that, in a functioning democracy, even the most celebrated voices must answer to reason. Asterisk. 1 month after the exchange, back in her district office, Crockett spoke with her local newspaper about the moment and its meaning. Asterisk. This was never about trying to embarrass Mr. Joel, who I truly admire as an artist, she explained. It was about ensuring our policy debates are grounded in consistent principles, not shifting stances based on convenience or personal interest. She continued. Celebrity attention can be incredibly valuable when it brings focus to under-discussed issues, but that attention only helps if it's tied to serious, evidence-based conversations. When we're crafting laws that affect thousands of working musicians, we owe it to them to rely on systemic data, not just anecdotes, even from icons. When asked if she had expected the segment to go viral, Crockett smiled. My priority was to create a factual record for the committee's work. That the public found it meaningful is heartening. It shows people are ready for substance over spectacle in our policy debates. The confrontation's influence extended well beyond a single moment. Its long-term legacy was the conversation it sparked about celebrity involvement in governance. Asterisk. Georgetown University professor Robert Chen may have summarized its impact best. Asterisk. This wasn't just a memorable TV segment. It was a reminder that in a healthy democracy, consistency and evidence must outweigh popularity, even when we love the person delivering the message. Asterisk. For those watching at home, the moment offered something increasingly rare. Asterisk. A public debate in which research overtook rhetoric, and evidence not celebrity held the final word. As one viewer commented under the viral video, I've loved Billy Joel's music for over 40 years, and I still do. But seeing someone respectfully hold him accountable using his own words reminded me that democracy isn't about who's speaking, it's about what's being said and whether it holds up. Asterisk. If you appreciated this deep dive into accountability and public dialogue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more thoughtful coverage of how policy debates unfold in real time. Asterisk. And let us know in the comments. Asterisk. What do you think? The role of celebrities should be in shaping public policy. Your feedback helps us keep delivering the content that informs, engages, and respects your intelligence.